Hello again. The second video in this flipped lecture series is on mathematical operators. The essential question is, what do the common mathematical operators mean, and how do we use these to find out more information about a variable? You may or may not have heard the term mathematical operators before. But what an operator is it's a symbol shortcut that tells you to do something specifically with a variable, a specific math operation. Some that you are familiar with, even if you've never heard the term, obviously plus. That means if you see two variables or two numbers, you're going to add them up. If you see that little symbol, it means take the square root of them. And that symbol means to compare the two values and figure out which one is more and which one is less. In this class, there's going to be a handful of new operators that you probably haven't seen before. And the first is the use of a subscript. So a subscript is a letter or a number that appears next to the variable, below it, usually to the right. And they are useful to help clarify which variable value we're talking about when you have a lot of variables that might get mixed up with other variables. Some really common ones that we use are initial and final subscripts, because we might be talking about an object whose distance is changing. It starts somewhere and it ends somewhere, or it has a velocity at the beginning and a different velocity at the end. So we would use the little subscript I to indicate this particular distance value is the distance it's starting at, or the velocity it started at. And we would use the subscript F to indicate a final or ending distance or velocity. There's other subscripts that we'll use over the course of the year. Typically they're really clear. They might even be an entire word. So if you saw vdog, for example, you'd know that that variable referred specifically to a dog's velocity and not the elephant or the turtle or whatever else you might be talking about. We'll be using subscripts a lot when it comes to forces, because there's a whole lot of forces out there we want to identify, and this tells me specifically which one we're talking about. A second new operator that you're probably not familiar with is called delta. Delta is written with a triangle. If you see a delta in front of any variable, it means find the amount that that variable has changed from its initial value to its final value. So if you have, for example, the statement, a car starts at 40 meters per second and speeds up to 46 meters every second, it should be clear to you that the car's velocity is changing. So you could find VI, which is 40, or VF, which is 46, but more importantly and more interesting in physics is typically the delta V value, which is 6 meters every second. I want to point out that this is the crucial importance of these operators and subscripts. There's a whole lot of velocities in this problem, but delta V specifically tells me how much that velocity changes. It went from 40 to 60, so we changed by 6 meters every second. An operator that you've probably done before in class, but we're going to be now making it a little more formal, is the average operator. If you see a little subscript AVG on a variable, it means that that variable is also probably changing, and you should find the average value for the variable. The way you find the average of two numbers is you add the initial and the final, and you divide by 2. So same problem, a car starts at 40 meters every second and speeds up to 46 meters every second, but if I was interested in the average velocity, you would take those two numbers, 40 plus 46, and add them up to get 86. And then you would take 86 divided by 2, which gives you 43. So you could write V average equals 43 meters every second. So in this one problem, there's actually 4 different variables that are all identified by different subscripts. V initial, V final, delta V, and V average can all be found with this. Another way that might be quicker for you than doing that math is just to think about the average as the number that's right in the middle. So the number that's right in the middle of 40 and 46 is 43. A really important operator in physics is called the sigma, and we won't be getting to this until probably the end of the semester, but I wanted to introduce it now anyways. If you see that, it looks kind of like a funky E. It's called sigma. And if you see that symbol, it means that you're going to be adding up or taking the sum of all the possible values of that variable. So if you knew, for example, 4 friends each had $10, the sigma money would be 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, which is $40. So it's kind of like the total amount of something. All right, so that's all the new operators we're going to be using over the course of the year. Please take a few minutes to revisit the essential question, which is what do the common mathematical operators mean, and why would we find using those operators really helpful and useful in physics? Thanks for your time.